let's flip a coin. Heads Carolina, tails California.
Okay, part 2 of NGOs. NGOs are needed, but they're really, really painful. Okay, I want to tell you I think the first time I ever realized anything that was sort of governmental, save the world type organization, I was in Acapulco dating this girl, Gina, and she was very educated, very knowledgeable. She was a Mexican living in Mexico City. She worked for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Now, even though this is like a government one, it's really the same kind of social structure. And what was funny is that I went and lived in her apartment. Well, I stayed at her apartment. She has a son and stuff for a couple of days, and I always remember she had a private elevator specifically for the cleaning lady. She had a bank account in Switzerland. But, nonetheless, she was a high-paid United Nations High Commission, United Nations High Commission for Refugees, basically helping refugees. And in Guatemala, in Mexico, you had some refugees that somehow left Guatemala and came over to Mexico. Well, we went and visited them, and I said, well, tell me the story on them. And we were in this little village, and they go, oh, they left 15 years ago. I go, wait a minute. Why are you talking to them? Well, they need help. I said, that person owns a business. And you're sitting there going, so what you're doing, tell me the truth, you're going to go help somebody that owns a business, that needs help, that's been in Mexico for 15 years. I said, they're not a refugee. I said, a refugee should have a timetable, like a 1-year thing. So that was my first realization that this was just like a little crazy. So you have all these related things. I remember volunteers in Costa Rica. You had a bunch of people. That's when, this greening, what do you call it? Well, basically everybody was trying to volunteer. All through Central and South America they would volunteer. And they were actually volunteering to pick coffee beans. And then guess what? They had to pay to volunteer, and they lived in this place. They picked coffee beans. Of course, they get to party all night, and basically put people out of work. Oh, funny. I went to this German hotel, permaculture, and I was staying in this hotel. Permaculture is a self-surviving culture, which basically his idea was he was going to reinvent the world and do it. So what he was doing is having people dig footers for his building so they could to make basically the hostel bigger. And I said, this isn't exactly what these people had in mind. I said, I don't really get a buzz out. I said, I'm not going to help you. I'll pay my $5 a day to live in the hotel, but I'm not going to volunteer. Because see, volunteer, donating, charities, they all get fuzzy in the brain. I mean, United Nations, who's giving money, all these things are somewhere they're trying to sell the idea that we're helping somebody. So we're supposed to help this German guy build his hotel, and I'm going, okay, so some of these city kids never dug a footer. And they were literally digging a footer. And then he, because I was on the internet, he wanted me to try to sell the building for like $300,000. I said, so basically you get free labor, then you're going to sell it. And this is the humorous part about all this stuff. I remember when I was in Iquitos, Peru, one of the friends there said we should start a Save the Altar NGO, because he knew exactly how they worked. He said, we don't even have to do it. We just need 1 picture, 2 pictures, boom, 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 and everybody will give money. And then there was actually a Save the Dog organization in Iquitos that didn't exist, and the guy was collecting money. In Lago Atalan, there's one about neutering dogs, because, I mean, there's dogs everywhere in Lago Atalan, and they're really, they won't put them to death, so they want to neuter them, right? And this one lady did. So basically what happens is the tourists come, they buy a dog, think they're going to live there, and then one day they just get on the plane and leave the dog. So there's all these extra dogs. Everybody's doing all this loving thing. And these stories go on and on and on. You have an NGO to neuter dogs and things. So, because everybody loves a dog, right? So you got to understand that an NGO is somehow going to grab something that you do in your home country. Very seldom will they actually go after a root cause. Because the root cause, the root problem is not marketable. It's not tear-jerking, right? I mean, there's a lot more worse problems than dogs on the planet, right? But, you know, that's an easy one because people can love their pet better than they can love people. I was in a farm orphanage in Haiti, and I do admit that the lady was doing something that was pretty good. She was grabbing babies that were failure to thrive, that were basically not wanted by the families. Nobody wanted them because they couldn't do farm work. See, there is no real orphans on the planet, really, in these poor countries because they all become adopted by a family and become like farm labor. But if the baby's deformed or whatever like that, that's where an orphanage is needed. So like if you had an orphanage for deformed babies, it's pretty hard to go wrong. There's a lot of, here in Togo right now, there's a lot of handicap things. But they don't want to talk about the root cause. The root cause is that there's no traffic laws and everybody keeps getting hit by cars, right? So they want to give money that the government should be, see, the money should be coming from the government because the government should suffer for not enforcing the laws and making sure that the roads are safe. So the NGOs come in again and serve as the social service for it. And you know, basically the government sets up all the rules, make sure that, you know, the NGO pays all the money to them, so it's a profitable thing, and they get out of the responsibility of taking care of their own country. Like I was saying, I went into Jakarta after the earthquake, and they were all waiting around all the NGOs were making up their mind whether they were going to leave. And if the big government's plan is they had a donor meeting, and if it's an earthquake, and if they weren't going to give money, they're all going to get back on the plane and leave because the money wasn't there. So they didn't have the money. They didn't actually have the money ready. So what are these guys? Some of these guys are like ambulance chasers. They're actually chasing the money. Everywhere on the planet there's the water filter. The water filter thing is the idea that we put this filter on. They'll run it through charcoal, they'll run it through stones, so they'll actually have a little filter, they'll give you stuff, but when you walk up and you ask, who's testing the water to make sure that the water that comes out of this is good? Non-existent. And this is the problem with the NGOs, is that they have good intentions, but they really have no sustainability, okay? Because really they're selling a pig in a poke, okay? And you're sitting there, any kind of hard scrutiny, and they're going to fall. And but I do have respect when somebody's only doing water filters as opposed to World Vision that's doing everything, right? What the hell is World Vision? They don't have a thing. Okay, the AIDS one's always a big one. We got more AIDS issues in Africa than anywhere, and the only country that really has AIDS in prolific levels is in South Africa. Togo's about the same level as things. I can go on and on and on about these things, and I could tell you story upon story upon story. And if you want to know something, I can only tell one story where I know an Eden Foundation in Niger that did a bunch of experiments and found like 20-some plants that could run down a root 20 meters down to water, and could create a bush that feeds the people. So they grow these bushes that are feeding the people, and all you do is plant them, and there's nuts that grow on these things, certain types of nuts, and the locals can eat them. And they did experiment upon experiment to find these things. They supposedly tested 25,000. And the Swedish guy that founded it was very smart. His family's kind of upset with him because he ran off with after his wife died, he ran off with a Thailand woman to Thailand. I think he realized that it was, you know, just at the end of the day, the lack of appreciation. All these guys give up. The bottom line is, I've been traveling for 16 plus years, went to 90 years, and I can't really tell you any NGO that really just is transparent, upfront, and as you're seeing them driving around in Toyota Land Rovers, biggest houses in a village where that thing could buy every house in the village. If you know, the money you took to buy that Land Rover would basically solve the whole issue for that village in one day. I mean, sometimes they're talking about water or sanitation problems. When you take $70,000 for a vehicle and you put it into water in West Africa, and when labor is $10 a day, I mean, that's a lot of money. But the thing is that they come in and their goal is not to solve the problem. Their goal is ongoing, to exist forever. And they're creating jobs that the locals love. 30% to 40% of the people at University of Cara are studying with the idea that they're going to go work for an NGO. That's scary. I really think it's closer to 80%, but I'm being nice, right? But say 30 to 40% of the students. If 30 to 40% of the students in America were studying to work for a nonprofit organization, the United States would go broke. Because we're educating our people so that we can, thrive. And what they're doing is educating their people so they can beg for money. Okay? And at the end of the day, what hurts here on the whole thing is that after you look at all these organizations and after you can tell these stories for so long, you feel like it's rape. You feel like, am I going to have to get raped again listening to the story? When you walk into a bar and you know that it's full of NGOs just drinking and partying, and none of them are working, and none of them are actually care whether they achieve anything. They just think that putting in their time is doing good work. I'll make another video talking about a couple other things. One of them will be the solutions. There is a solution, there are some easy solutions, but it's confusing. Very, very confusing. And this is why it is a black hole. It just never ends.
Tonight, let's flip a coin.